So, when I ask, what is Odoo? What comes to mind? Well, Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a suite of business management software that some people say is like fertilizer because of the way it promotes growth. But some people also say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. But then again, you could look at Odoo in terms of how its individual software programs are a lot like building blocks. I mean, whatever your business needs, manufacturing, accounting, HR programs, you can build a custom software suite that's perfect for your company. So what is Odoo? Well, I guess Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a fertilizer, magic beanstalk building blocks for business. Yeah, that's it. Which means that Odoo is exactly what every business needs. Learn more and sign up now at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Hello and welcome to the Washington Times Politically Unstable. I'm Kelly Sadler, the commentary editor at the Washington Times. And today I'm joined by Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois, Democratic governor of Illinois, may I add. There has been a war of words between the president of the United States and Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, Illinois' current governor, JB Pritzker, about crime in the state, in the city of Chicago in particular, with the president tweeting over the weekend a picture of apocalypse now, basically saying war, the Department of War is coming for Chicago. Of course, it was a joke. A lot on the left took it to mean that the National Guard is coming into Chicago at any moment. Of course, the president has not committed to moving in the National Guard in Chicago without a call from the governor or a call from the mayor. However, ICE is initiating raids in the city of Chicago targeting illegal criminals for deportation. So, Rod, I just want to get your thoughts on, a lot has been coming from JB Pritzker. He's taking a walk on the beach, saying Chicago's safe in the morning. Brandon Johnson also saying that crime is not a problem in the city of Chicago, and they're working on it and they're making their own strides. What say you to the state of Chicago, the state of Illinois, the crime problem, and what the current leadership there should be doing?
Well, for Governor Pritzker and for Mayor Johnson to say crime's not a problem in Chicago is the same lies that they told about President Biden being cognitively fit to be president. It was just, obvious that he wasn't. They were lying to us about something we knew wasn't true. Eventually, they even admitted the lie by forcing him out of the presidential race. And this is the same sort of thing. Crime is a very serious problem in Chicago. Tell that to the families who lost 285 people to murders this year in Chicago alone. In fact, this past weekend, 7 people were murdered and 12 others were shot. The weekend before that, the numbers were even higher. We are averaging more than a murder a day in Chicago. And my numbers as of this past last week, at the end of last week, we've had 147,899 reported crimes in Chicago. And that's averaging almost 600 crimes a day. So for the mayor and for Governor Pritzker to say that crime is not a problem and that violent crime is not a problem is a flat out lie. And they're lying about something that's critical. It's literally life and death. They're lying about something that they have a responsibility to do, and that is to keep people safe. The first duty of government is public safety. The mayor and the governor have a responsibility to do everything possible that's legal and lawful and moral and ethical to save lives and for them to turn down President Trump's offer of help. And by the way, we know it works what President Trump is doing with the National Guard and with federal enforcement officers, because we see what's happening in Washington, D.C. For Governor Pritzker and for Brandon Johnson to turn down that offer of help isn't just the wrong thing to do. It's an immoral thing to do because they could literally save lives. And here's something that I think is important for your listeners to know. 80% of the murder victims of Chicago are Black. Mm-hmm. 95% of the murder victims of Chicago are Black and Latino. So the very people the Democratic Party claims they're for are the very ones who are dying. And they're the ones who Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson refused to help. And worse than that, they're not even not wanting the help from President Trump. They're threatening. Governor Pritzker has said he's going to go to court. They're threatening to block President Trump's offer to come in and save lives. For the Democratic Party today, it's all rhetoric, it's all talk, it's all politics over public safety, and Black lives matter to them only when it comes to votes.
Rod, how did we get to this state of play today in the city of Chicago? Chicago has always been a little unsafe in certain neighborhoods. But it seems now, even in the wealthiest suburbs, there is ongoing crime. So how did we get to the state of play right now? How did things get so bad? Was it Democratic policies? Was it not making arrests? Was it cash bail? Can you name any one thing, or was it just a bunch of different contributing factors?
I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's several factors. And I would say to begin with, while violent crime and murders are disproportionately in the lower income, poor neighborhoods where Black people live and they're suffering and they're living in fear, crime across the city is very real. Carjackings, for example, are up almost 50% in this city. And my wife the other day was just telling me she was pumping gas and she was fearful that a SUV pulled up with some young people in it. And she was afraid that they might be interested in carjacking her. It didn't happen. But that's the sort of the real fear that people are experiencing, particularly women in Chicago, in every part of our city. But how did we get here? Well, largely, it's because of the Democratic leaders who decided to pursue policies that are stupid. No cash bail is a stupid policy. It's not based on common sense or real life. It's based on applying a one-size-fits-all approach to crime, which is the worst thing you can do. Whether you're going to be too soft on crime, which is what no cash bail is, or whether you're going to be too tough on crime, which is what the Democrats were in 1994 with the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden sponsored and the Democrat President Bill Clinton pushed. That was a bill that condemned a whole generation of young Black men, first-time nonviolent offenders, to these long, long sentences that gave them no chance at a second chance. And basically, he's created what the author Michelle Alexander called the new Jim Crow in America, which allows young Black men to be discriminated against because they become convicted felons. Now, I'm not saying you don't incarcerate people. Of course you do. But these approaches to crime, they need to be smart and not broad. They can't be something that you don't consider on a case-by-case basis because every fact pattern is different. But the Democrats embraced tough on crime because the polling showed that that was the case back in the 1990s. Now they've embraced soft on crime because their polling, which is remarkable to me, I can't believe it shows that, but their polling suggests something other than that. And what Pritzker here, our governor, is doing, and what Mayor Johnson is doing, they're basically just taking orders from the Democratic National Committee. And their position basically is whatever Trump does that's going to be good for people, don't let him get it done. And if it's going to save Black lives or Latino lives or anybody else's life, if Trump's going to be the one who does it, don't let him do it. We don't want him to look good, and we don't want to make us look bad. Because a lot of this has to do with the fact that they're fearful, the Democratic leaders are fearful, that what Trump's going to do in Chicago is what he did in Washington, and that he's going to significantly reduce crime and save lives, and they'll be shown up for their failed leadership. It's a very cynical, immoral politics that they're playing, and it's disgraceful.
Well, Brett, I've seen local news networks in Chicago go out on the streets of the South Side and interview residents, and all of them say that crime is a problem and that it needs to be acknowledged and that they don't feel safe in their own streets. So wouldn't it be wise? These are Pritzker's constituents. These are Johnson's constituents. Johnson, who is polling in the single digits, by the way, because he is so unpopular in the city of Chicago. Wouldn't it be wise for them to maybe call the president of the United States and say, hey, we don't want the National Guard. You legally can't really bring them in here anyway without our permission. We're unlike DC, that is managed by the federal government. But we want to work with you on other areas that we can help, round out our police force and bulk up its numbers, that we can, the broken windows sense of policing that worked in New York City during Giuliani's term. I mean, wouldn't they be wise to actually make that call to show their constituents that they are acknowledging the problem and trying to solve it?
Well, they would be wise and they would be right. Here again, Kelly, it's an issue of politics over public policy and public safety. They have a responsibility. The mayor and the governor, I was the governor, had a responsibility to keep the people safe. You have a responsibility to do the best job you can for the people who elected you and hired you. And so if that means working with the president of the other party, even though you may not like that person, even though you hope to beat him in the next election or beat her in the next election, you have an obligation to the people who elected you to work with everybody and anybody who can make life better for the people who hired you. And that's what they're not doing. They're doing just the opposite. And they're doing it on an issue that is literally life and death. We're talking about crime. We're talking about murder. We're talking about violence. We're talking about armed robbery and
it shouldn't be a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue.
It should not be. It should not be. And they should have long ago enthusiastically reached out to President Trump and asked him for help. And the fact that they didn't do that is a bad thing. The fact that when Trump has offered to send them help, the fact that they're turning that down is even a worse thing. And the fact that Governor Pritzker is now saying he's going to go to court to block President Trump if he sends federal aid and federal enforcement agents and even the National Guard to Illinois and to Chicago, that's extremely bad. In other words, Chicago is a sanctuary city by the mayor, by Governor Pritzker, by the predecessor of Mayor Johnson, Rahm Emanuel. They made Chicago a sanctuary city, which basically put up a sign to immigrants outside of our country: come into America, forget about what the laws are. You come into our city, we'll keep you safe, and we'll protect you from the police, and we'll protect you from ICE. That's essentially what they did. And the human tragedies that do exist with these families that are now being compelled to have to leave, that's on the Democrats. They're the ones who invited them in. They're the ones who misled them. And they're the ones who not only invited that in, but worse, they invited in criminals, thousands of criminals who came into this country illegally and got cover from all those other people who came to America. These criminals are not, misdemeanor criminals. These are violent criminals. Who are they? They're gangbangers, they're drug dealers, they're human traffickers, and they're cold-blooded killers. And they're in our city, and they're selling fentanyl to our children and to others. And they're working with the street gangs in Chicago. And all of this needs to be addressed and needs to be solved. And instead of doing that, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson are playing politics and letting all the terrible things that are happening in those terrible neighborhoods and all over the city happen, because we are a city that is plagued with crime.
Well, we will be monitoring this situation, kind of the back and forth between the administration and the leadership in Springfield, as well as Chicago. We know ICE immigration raids are underway in the city of Chicago, largely because they are, as you said, a sanctuary city for illegal criminals, where the illegal criminals' rights, you hate to say it, but it feels like the politicians there value those more than the citizen victims. But Rod Blagojevich, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we'll keep in touch as the situation progresses.
Thank you.